if government has its way, then you'll soon know what your boss earns. A new bill is trying to mandate better pay transparency at state-owned enterprises and public-listed companies. Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Ibrahim Patel said executive salaries at the highest levels of a company are a great matter of concern. According to PwC, CEOs of South Africa's top companies make 24 million rand per year on average. A minimum wage worker can expect to earn 43,000 rand over that same period. What will this bill do to company culture if passed? Morag Phillips is an HR specialist at 21st Century and can tell us more. Morag, thank you so much for your time. The minister said that executive pay is a great matter of concern. What did he mean by this? Does he mean that the executives are being paid too much, or the ratio is not right?
Hi, Tapfuma. Thanks for having me here today. I think that there's a lot of press around the quanta that top executives earn, but in our view, the issue is actually at the bottom. So in a dream world, if we could create lots of employment and pay everyone a living wage, then the wage gap would look better. So it's not necessarily that the top is always the problem, it's the gap between the top and the bottom.
So the bill is meant to push for more transparency, but it doesn't prescribe exactly what the ratios should be from between the top earners and the earners right at the bottom. So if the ratios aren't prescribed, what exactly is the transparency going to achieve?
I think that it's about the level of communication. Currently listed organizations have to publish CEO, CFO, prescribed officers. So the top levels are already transparent. The difference in this reporting is that the bottom levels would also be reported, so the minimum wage, as well as the averages for the whole organization, the median, which is the middle value for the whole organization, and then the gap between top and bottom. If I can just comment on that gap, there is no South African benchmark around that. And the reason is that it's so industry dependent. And if you've got many lower level workers, like in a mining environment, your ratio is going to be very different versus a professional organization. So that wage gap benchmark, if you want to call it that, is actually about comparing to yourself year on year, showing that you're improving the wage gap. And it's about comparing to your own industry so that you've got a more reasonable comparison. And that's really where the reporting change is in that gap.
And what is this going to do for company culture if you know that the CEO is earning millions and you're just on a fraction of that?
Look, I think the CEO pay is already known in those listed entities. It's already public. In what I'm thinking about is that a company culture doesn't just change because of one legislative change or one new area of communication. So the culture is something that continues all the time, but it requires mega communication. And in this particular case, yes, we can be transparent, but it's about actually explaining to our employees and teams what the ratio means. And in our view, that would improve the culture, and it's really about trust. So it's easy to be transparent when the pay is fair and it is responsible. It's much more difficult when you've got things to fix, or maybe history you're trying to fix, or affordability issues. But the communication is critical to keep the culture positive.
Do you think the bill as it stands is going to do its bit in lowering the gap between the top earners and the bottom earners? And is there any downside to these disclosures?
The downside is if a company isn't mature in their communication, because it could be well misunderstood and that could be damaging from a relationship point of view. But I think that there's more to be done around the wage gap than just reporting it. So in other words, that can become a compliance issue. I've reported it, but if I'm not making change within the organization and actually improving, then the fair and responsible mandate is not being achieved. So it's both.
All right. Morag Phillips, thank you so much for joining us for that, talking about a draft bill to make sure that the ratios between top earners in companies and the lowest earners is revealed to the public.